work in the Faculty of Social Sciences are actually programming. And it is not an accident that we decided to do a Black History Month series this month, February 2026, because this is the 100th year of Black History Month. What do I mean? It was started by Carter G. Woodson, African American, in February 1926. And I recommend you get this book, The Miseducation of the Negro, because Carter G. Woodson was aware that Black people were being miseducated. The curriculum that we have even today is a colonized curriculum, which denigrates Black people and puts them on an inferior level to all the other races. So to get a real concept of who we are and the past, the proud past that we came from, we need to start looking at Black history. Now, I am passionate about Black history. I'm not unapologetically passionate. And I'm an advocate for more Black history in our schools here in Jamaica. On my part, here at the University of the West Indies, I do an African diaspora course and sociology of race course, and my focus is on not just racial relations, but the history of African people in the world. And the history is important because it informs us of the present. Because if we don't get the historical context right, then we'll have a misconception of our existence today. Yes, we had civilizations. Yes, we can go further than that. We could actually say we were the founders of civilization on the planet. When we look at the Nile Valley civilization, I'm talking about Ethiopia to Sudan to Egypt. Now, I had the good fortune, well, not good fortune, I made it a point to go to Egypt this year, early this year, 2026. And because it was on my bucket list for years, for decades, right? And I'm glad I went because I saw and beheld from my own eyes the wonder, the majesticness of this architecture that the ancient Egyptians built. And it is majestic. I'm telling you, it's mind-blowing. I'm still mesmerized even now, weeks after being to Kemet, which we refer to, which is Egypt, is also referred to as Kemet. I'm talking about not just the pyramids, the esophaguses, I'm talking about the temples, the height, the sheer size. And when the pharaohs, when they make statues of the pharaohs, the size, check out Ramses II, right? I went to Memphis, which is just outside of the capital there of Egypt. Yes, Cairo, and the size. Memphis, I tell you, it was out of this world. But I don't want to go on too much about that because we got to have a great talk from our keynote speaker. But before I introduce him, I want to just say that this book here, and I decided, I was in two minds to whether to bring it or not because this is sentimental to me. This book on our honorable national hero, first national hero, Marcus Garvey, was written by David Cronin in the 50s. And it's a biography on Garvey, and it's a fascinating read. But guess what? My parents gifted this to me on my 15th birthday, way back in the 70s. So this book is almost 50 years old now. And I've treasured it much because both my parents have departed, sadly. But the memory I have of them and the pathway they intended for me was clear because they made no bones about it. Listen, I couldn't play around in school. I couldn't, miss school or whatever. I went to Jamaica College when I was here. I had to be, and when I came, they made sure I was doing my homework. You know what I mean? I couldn't get away from it. Both my mother and my father were strict about that. And I resented it then, but the truth is, I'm grateful for it now because I wouldn't be on this path. But what is great about this book they gifted for me on my 15th birthday are some notable quotes on Marcus Garvey. Let me read it. So in 1926, Marcus Garvey said, "Negroes, teach your children," I should just say the terminology for blacks then in the early 20th century was Negroes. Negroes, teach your children that they are direct descendants of the greatest and proudest race who ever peopled the earth. This is Garvey, more than 100 years ago. I'll read it once more. Negroes, teach your children that they are direct descendants of the greatest and the proudest race who ever peopled the earth. 1927, he says, every student of history of impartial mind knows that the Negro once ruled the world when white men were savages and barbarians living in caves. Well, that's a quote from him in 1927. What does he say on Black Pride in 1927? Marcus Garvey said, in a world where black is despised, sorry, it's not a direct quote, but this is actually this is a description of what Marcus Garvey was saying. He made black people proud of their race in a world where black is despised. He taught them that black is beautiful. That's from the New Amsterdam News, November 30th, 1927. And that's true. Garvey introduced the notion of black pride. That's what he was about. Because you have to understand the terrible conditions that black people, African people, were living in more than 100 years ago. They're terrible. There was extreme segregation, extreme oppression. Even here in Jamaica, black people were badly oppressed. And I will go as far to say that if the oppression was not so severe in Jamaica, we wouldn't have a Rastafari movement in Jamaica. The Rastafari movement, as someone who's written on it at length, has come out of Jamaica, not accidentally, but the oppression that the British white colonials put on black people in the early 20th century, in the 19 teens, in the 1920s, was very severe. It was a very oppressive country at that time, and we should not basically lose sight of that. And it was the oppression that gave black people the urge to rise up and uplift because they couldn't live under that kind of subjugation for too long. So without the oppressive conditions, Rastafari could have well came from another island. Do you know that Leonard Howell, who is seen as the founder of the Rastafari movement, was jailed for sedition because he dared to say to Jamaican black people, he said, black people, you should not worship King George V. Our true king is Haile Selassie, the king and emperor in Ethiopia. He said this in 1933, and he was jailed for sedition. That's how, I mean, if we said that now, as bad as things are, I don't think we'd be put in jail if we had a problem with whether, supposing we said we don't want to worship King Charles III, right? I doubt very much we'd be jailed for a couple of years or 3 years, hard labor as well for that. So things have improved somewhat, but we got to know the past. The last thing I will say on this book is that, and this just struck me, 1920, he says, the Uncle Tom nigger has got to go, and his place must be taken by the new leader of the Negro race. That man will not be a white man with a black heart, nor a black man with a white heart, but a black man with a black heart. That's Garvey, more than 100 years ago. I mean, what can I say? These words still resonate today. So I want to now go and introduce our main keynote speaker. And I'll just say that, well, for me, Professor Molefi Kete Asante is not a stranger. And I should tell you, Professor, I regard you as one of my mentors coming up, through the ranks in the various universities I've attended to, particularly when I was in the US. And it was really in the US when I came here because my first degree was actually in England, University of London, at the behest of my parents. Because they were actually pointed out that the prestige of Cambridge University, Oxford, and University of London was such that I would benefit from going there rather than UWI. And reluctantly, I went along with the program, and they were right. The truth is, Cambridge University, Oxford, and University of London are more prestigious than UWI. UWI actually came out of the University of London. So, University of London is the parents of this institution. But nonetheless, I've done a complete circle. I was in the US, I was at Florida International University and then at Temple University. I got to know Professor Asante better. I knew him when I was at Florida International University, but the fact that he was based at Temple, I could go up and talk and we could exchange perspectives. And, so I'm very glad that he managed to come, accept my invitation, and he's here. So Molefi Kete Asante is an activist intellectual who is currently a professor in the Department of Africology at Temple University. He is also president of the Molefi Kete Asante Institute for Afrocentric Studies. Professor Asante is a guest professor at Zhejiang University in China, and he's professor or extraordinaris at the University of South Africa. He was elected to the African Academy of Sciences in 2025. Professor Asante has published 105 books. I know from his radio interview he has 104, but let's update it to 105. Probably in a couple of months, 106. He is among the most important, among his books are Being Human Being, Transforming the Race Discourse, Erasing Racism, The Survival of the American Nation, African Pyramids of Knowledge, Facing South, An African Orientation to Knowledge, and a lot more. And I want to make note of this fantastic volume, The History of Africa. So this is, I just kind of went through briefly. I haven't got to read it yet, but he gifted this copy to me. So please, nobody put their hands on this. It could get violent. All right, thanks. Anyway, he's written prolifically. So too many, I can't even go into all of his articles and because we haven't talked about the articles yet, let alone the books. But what I want to say to kind of wrap up with the introduction is that he is married to Anna Yenenga, who is here with him, sat by him. So, let's just give her as well as him. Let's give them a round of applause, so Jamaican hospitality. So they're here, as testament to Black solidarity and the Black Union. He has 3 children, Mario, Ika, and MK Jr., who was born in Zimbabwe. Professor Asante is a poet, a novelist, a dramatist, and a painter. His works on African language, multiculturalism, and human culture and philosophy have been cited and reviewed by journals such as the Africological Perspectives, the Quarterly Journal of Speech, the Journal of Black Studies, the Journal of Communication, American Scholar, Western Journal of Black Studies, and International Journal of Pan-African Thought, a whole host. The final thing I would say is that he is recognized, or I should say the Unten Reader called him one of the 100 leading thinkers in America. Professor Asante has appeared on numerous television programs in Africa, America, and Europe. He's found on all social media. He has received many awards and honors for scholarship and political activism. And notably for me, he was the president of the student organization, which I'm sure all of you are aware of, or those who are old enough, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee of the 60s, that's SNCC. And he knew Kwame Ture, who was formerly Stokely Carmichael, very well, who was also, as you know, a president of the 60s. So he wasn't just a reader, he wasn't just an armchair revolutionary, he was in the struggle, he's lived the struggle in the 60s, and he's still living the Black struggle for liberation today. So without further ado, let's give it up for Professor Kete Asante. Professor Molefi Kete Asante. Yes. He can't tell you. He will tell you. All right? Yeah.
Hotel. Habari Gani. What's up? It's good to be here in the University of West Indies. and it's good to see you. And I'm delighted that you have come out to this centennial lecture. I want to, first of all, acknowledge that we are on the land of the Arawaks and the Tainos. I acknowledge them, acknowledge the lives they lived, and I acknowledge the fact that in 1655, when the British introduced enslavement of Africans here on this island, our ancestors fought the battle of resistance. And so I recognize all of our ancestors. I want to thank the university for this invitation. I have been here several times, but this is the first time that I've had the occasion to speak to you regarding the history of African people, black history. And that's a wonderful thing. And that's due to Dr. Michael Barnett. And I should let you know that actually Anna Yaninga, my wife, and I, we have known him for about 26 years. Actually, when he invited us to Florida International University when he was a doctoral student down there and leading the Black student movement, and invited us to come and speak. So, Michael, we thank you so much. And we're just delighted to see how he has grown and developed and become a senior lecturer here at UE. I also want to just congratulate him for being consistent. You know, consistency is a good thing. Sometimes people start something and they don't continue it, but consistency is good. And I'm so happy to be here celebrating Black history, but also I recognize that this is also Reggae History Month as well, which is also a part of Black history. Sometimes people want to separate the two, but they're the same. And I also want to say that Carter G. Woodson was a remarkable African. And I'll talk about him a little bit and then I'll move into my main thoughts tonight. But Carter G. Woodson was the first child of an enslaved African parent group to receive a PhD in the United States. He was the second student to receive a PhD from the Department of History at Harvard University. That was second to W.B. Du Bois. But Du Bois's parents were not enslaved, but Woodson's parents were enslaved. And he came out of the hills of West Virginia and Virginia, where he worked in the coal mines as a young boy. And working in those coal mines, and I came out of South Georgia working in cotton fields and the tobacco fields, sugar cane. So I know something about hard work as well. But he obviously, working in the coal mines, taught him great lessons. He understood the lessons of white racial domination. He understood the need for resistance. And his own parents, who had raised him, had taught him the value of freedom. And in fact, the great gift of the African people to the world was freedom, the notion of freedom. That's what we gave to the world. Nobody else gave that except us. And it came out, of course, a response to bondage. You're in bondage, you want freedom. And that was different from what the white people in America fought for. They fought for liberty. It was a whole different thing, fight for liberty and fight for freedom. But freedom, the concept of freedom, is an incredibly strong African sense, a concept of people being agents in their own right. It is the very basis for my whole philosophical theory of Afrocentricity, is that notion of freedom, that each individual and we as a collective people, we are nodes of excellence. And that means that we ourselves are nodes of people who are willing to assert ourselves and to assert our history and culture. So Woodson understood this very early. And I'm just so happy that Dr. Barnett mentioned his great book, The Miseducation of the Negro, because it's in that book, which was written in 1933, in that book where Woodson says something that is as true today as it was then. And you ask yourself the question, haven't we learned something? And then you have to say, well, some of us have, some of us haven't. And I'll tell you what he said. One of the things he said, which is so powerful, that we go to universities, and he was mainly talking about the historically black colleges and universities. We go to these schools and we learn European culture. We learn European art. We study European music. We study European social sciences, psychology. We study all European stuff. And he says the more we study that, the farther away we get from who we are. That we do that we and I have always thought of this. And I don't know, but I'm going to ask this question. I know they teach music in Jamaica, but I wonder how many of the compositions of Bob Marley are in the music department. I don't know. I've never even asked that question. But I asked that question in the US. You know why I asked that question? Because it's possible at my university, Temple University, it's even possible at Columbia to get a doctoral degree in music and have never studied Duke Ellington. Now, how can that be? You ask your, he's the most prolific composer in America's history. Over 4,000 compositions. And you can get a degree in music and not know Duke Ellington's composition. How can that be? How can it be in a black college in the United States? How can it be in Fisk University or Lincoln University or Howard University that you can go to school? How can it be at UE? I don't know what y'all do at UE. I haven't looked at the curriculum. But how could it be that you could study any art form, any cultural form, any social organization, and not study black people, black history first, black culture, black art? This is the first art. And Brother Dr. Barnett just said it. Anna and I, for many years, we took groups of scores of people to Kemet, to Egypt, on tours. We just got tired of it, I think, in 2019, said, oh, we're not going to do this again. But we used to take people to Egypt. And we took them, and it was really the same impact that you had. The impact was the same on all black people. It's like, wow, our civilization is at the beginning of human history. And in fact, Kemet is the daughter of Nubia. This is, people used to say Ethiopia, but Ethiopia and Nubia was the same back in those days. But this idea that you can have this information and not study African information. Carter Woodson understood that very early. In 1926, at the YMCA in Chicago, he pronounced, we're going to just celebrate. Well, the thing is that he found it more difficult to teach us about celebrating ourselves than he imagined. He thought it would be an easy thing. That's why when I go to places like Jamaica, or I lived in Zimbabwe, or we travel in Nigeria, wherever we go, we always say, we know what the problem is, but can we teach people to resolve the issue? And like, I know in Jamaica what the problem is. I live in Philadelphia. I know in Philadelphia what the problem is. But will my people allow me to teach them what the problem is? And if I teach them, will they understand what the problem is? The problem is very simple. And Woodson understood it. And that's what he was telling us in that great book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And what he was telling us was that the enslavement itself and the colonization of the continent of Africa moved us completely off of our own terms. Think about that. Moved us off of our terms. Not just physically, we know that. We were picked up, put on ships, and brought across the sea to the Caribbean and then to the Americas. So we were moved physically off of terms, but we were moved spiritually, we were moved culturally, we were moved in terms of values, we were moved in terms of our memory, totally off of term, and put somewhere else and given new information that really was in contradiction to who we were. That's our problem. How do you resolve that problem, though? If that's the problem, if we have been moved from one place to another place in our minds and spiritually and culturally and in the name of religion and all that, how do we change it? What do we do? That's the problem. That's the question. The way Sheikh Anta Diop, the greatest African intellectual of the 20th century, the way he put it in 1948 was to ask the question, when will the black person be able to speak of an African Renaissance? That was a question he asked. He was like just barely 20 years old. He was asking this question. He says, everybody else talk about Renaissance. When shall we be able to talk about a Renaissance? Carter Woodson understood that. Carter Woodson ended up going to Berea College in Kentucky. In Berea College, you had to work. Every student goes to Berea, even to this day, you go to Berea College in Kentucky, it's a working thing. It's not like you go there and you just get, your mind expanded. You physically have to work. And it's a working college, Berea College, right now. He went there. And he left Berea College, and they put him in, they sent him to Philippines. Most people don't realize that he lived in Philippines for about 2 years, Carter G. Woodson. He was a supervisor of a school for Filipinos in Philippines. Then he went to Harvard and got his PhD in history from the same department that Du Bois had got his degree from years earlier. And he got his PhD, and then he started teaching at Howard University. And he taught at Howard University, he became the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. He was very, very strong. But you know what? He gave it up. He said, you know what? At this university, I cannot do what I need to do for the black community. I cannot do it. They will not allow me to do it. I cannot change this curriculum. I cannot make dents in what Europe has established in the minds of my people. I will start my own work. And he set up his own work and set up his own publishing house called the Standard Publishing House and started publishing about black history. That's how focused he was. Created, number one, the first journal that we had called the Journal of Negro History. It was it was Woodson, not Du Bois. It was Woodson who did that. And not only did he do that, but he says, not only do we need a journal, which is, by the way, the journal is still going, been going for a long. Actually, the journal is older than Negro History Month. The journal was started in 1916. He started the Journal of Negro History, and it's still going on. I think it's housed in Morehouse College. But it was a very, very, very keen mind, and he wanted not only to start that, but he also started an association called the Association for the Study, at that time, of Negro History and Life. That was a SALA. It's now called the Association for the Study of African life and history. But it's a very, very old organization in our history. Now, who was Woodson? Woodson was a Pan-Africanist. And he was a Pan-Africanist in the sense that he believed that what he was doing was not just for African people who lived in the United States. It was what he was doing for African people who lived in the world, throughout the world, and particularly those of us who were in the diaspora. That was his intention. That was the thing that he had in his mind. And that was the most brilliant thing that I can think of in terms of a man fighting for the interests of African people and trying to make sure that we understood the very nature of the condition that we were in. So I look at Carter G. Woodson as perhaps the preeminent promoter of African intellectual freedom in the history of the world. You have to understand that he knew that we were custodians of our own culture. But to be custodians of your own culture means that you have to know who you are, first of all. If you don't know who you are, you can't be a custodian of your culture. Let me put it this way. The first thing they did when they brought us to Jamaica or Cuba or Haiti or any of the islands in the Caribbean, because most Africans who are in the United States actually came first through the Caribbean. That was the sort of the heart of the matter. You come to the islands, and then they sort of get you they get you straight and get you so you're meek and mild, and then they send you to Georgia. You see. But you guys who are still here, they couldn't get y'all meek and mild, so they didn't take all you away. But those of us that you see in Virginia, they worked on us in the islands and got us so okay. Now they're good enough. They'll do anything you say. Take them to Virginia. Take them to South Carolina. Take them to Georgia. Take them wherever you got them now. Well, they took us because, but they first did a number of jobs on us. Because when we got off the ships from Africa, but our names were not Jefferson or Washington or Johnson or Smith or Adams. We didn't have those kind of names when we came from Africa. And we came from over 300 different ethnic groups or nations of Africa. So we had many different names. And our names were African names. They were beautiful names. They sounded lovely. They were melodic names. The melody of those names still ring true, even to this day. So we got off the boat, and when we got off those boats and those ships with those beautiful African names, they took our names away from us and said, "No, we are not going to call you Adebayo. No, your name will not be Gadio. No, your name will not be Malinke. No, your name will not be any of those African names. We're going to call you Bob and Mary and John and Ruth." That's what they did. It's just like an animal. You name your dog. You give the dog your name. That's what they did to us. They gave us their names. So this notion of taking us off of our terms was that they took us, as I said, from one place, brought us to another place, but they also did that to us psychologically. They said, okay, you're no longer going to have the name of Kete Asante. That's no longer your name. I'm going to call you Art Davis. And that's going to be your name. Well, what did that do? That meant that the names of our ancestors were never heard again. And if you never hear the names of your ancestors again, you're lost. You're confused. You don't know which way to turn. It's that problem, you see? It's a deep, deep, powerful problem that they gave all of us. And wherever you go in the Americas, it's the same problem. I traveled to Colombia, and it's the same problem. I was in Cuba a couple of years ago, same problem. They got Spanish names. Not African names. They're black people, but they got Spanish names. We got English names. They got Spanish names. You travel to Haiti or to Martinique, names. Think of that. How in the world? What is it? What bomb? What cultural bomb came and just took our identity away? And by taking our identity, took our memory. So we don't even remember anything. I don't remember nothing. I don't know nothing. Excuse me, that's African American vernacular. I don't know nothing. That's right. That's right. I don't know nothing. To wipe your mind out. But you have no memory of anything. You said, well, you are African. No. I'm no African. I'm Jamaican. You know what I mean? No, I'm not an African. I'm from Detroit. You know, it confuses us. Mentally, we are confused. Psychologically, we are confused. Culturally, we are confused. No people can ever be strong or mature if they do not rid themselves of that confusion. I told you I traveled to China, and I'm guest professor at Zhuzheng University in Hangzhou. And one of the things I discovered and I love about China was that the Chinese, and this people think of it as a terrible period under Mao. They basically shut down the country, redid the whole country, rewired the psychology of the people, put all the professors in the fields, in the farms, trained them, retrained them, so that they became Chinese and not European. And then China opened the doors. And you see the most fantastic development and creative innovations in the world right now in China. I'm telling you, we have no idea. And the Americans have no idea. And I had no idea until when I went to Shanghai, and Anna and I went to Beijing. And we said, wow, look what the Chinese doing. They got trains running through buildings, apartment buildings. They have the longest bridges in the world. And they're using Chinese culture. Using not only Chinese culture, but Chinese motifs. They said, hey, we don't have to build buildings with 90-degree angles like the Europeans. Everything squared, or everything with a 90-degree angle and linear. We can build things that come out of our own cultural framework. I mean, that's how powerful and incredible Chinese culture is. They reclaim the culture. I'm telling you, African people need to reclaim our culture. And sometimes people say, well, there's so many cultures in Africa, but I guarantee you they're all one. I lived in Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwean culture and the South African culture, they're all one. Different languages sometimes spoken, but the same concepts. You can live in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Nigeria, different languages, same concepts. You can live in Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, same ideas, same concept. And there's some things that are fundamental to Africa that came out of the Nile Valley civilizations. All over Africa is the same. Let me tell you something. Here you have one of the greatest cultures, but we have lost so much memory. And it's beautiful that you have Queen Nanny on some of your money. But most young people in this country don't know about Queen Nanny, and they don't know if you ask them about Queen Nanny and ask them about the Maroons. You know that there are a lot of them, they want to know what are you talking about, and these are young people I'm talking about who know the image. And there are people like that in the United States. They know Marcus Garvey's image, but they can't tell you what he did. They know Malcolm X's image, but they think the X means Malcolm 10. They don't have any idea what Malcolm did or who he was. You see? So part of that is because we have not been good stewards of our own history. We have not taught our children who we were and who we are and where we came from. That's on us. And that means that even if we have institutions, which we have, so many institutions, people say, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. But let me tell you something. We have incredible power, but we have never been able to adequately use the power that we have. And that is the problem. And if our ancestors are not called, and if we don't use the power that we have, we lose every time. Carter G. Woodson understood this 100 years ago. And that's why I think this centennial celebration is so important. Look at this. There are 3 countries in the Caribbean that represent, in my judgment, what Europe did to us, what Spain did to Cuba, what the British did in Jamaica, and what the French did in Haiti. That these countries provided wealth to Europe. There would have been no industrialization in Europe, no transfer of power, of economic power, except on the backs of the African people who worked in these countries and other countries in the Caribbean. And that to me is one of the great crimes of all times. And that's why when people ask questions about reparations, I say, yes, reparations are necessary. And not only necessary, they are morally correct. And they are morally correct not because people are giving us anything that we didn't deserve, but my ancestors in Georgia worked from can't see in the morning to can't see at night for nothing for 246 years. And and when people come to me and say, well, America is great, I say, well, who made it great? How did it get great? How did it get economic power? You have 250 years of free labor of millions of people, and you can't be an economic powerhouse? Of course you can. And the same with Britain, and the same with France, and the same with Spain. Spain has lost a whole lot now, but I'm just telling you that fundamentally we are the custodians, and we have to be very clear and very powerful in terms of our work, and that we understand who we are, because no civilization No civilization, to me, existed before our civilization. I was in Brazil earlier in the year, actually last November. Was in Brazil. You got 100 million black people in Brazil, twice as many as you have in the United States. It is a powerful, potentially powerful, I should say, African country, Brazil. But they got the same problem we got. They have the same dislocation we have. And that dislocation means that we don't understand our own history and our own culture. So they got Portuguese names. Not only do they have Portuguese names, but they have Portuguese memory. And the education has been an education to teach them to love Portuguese culture and history more than they love African. That's a fact. Now, of course, because they have so many people, there's still a strong African element in that society, as there are in many of these societies. So I give you this information because I want you to know that this notion of Black history is essential. And I'm gonna bring this around to a close by talking about Kemet a little bit. Just want to say that a little bit because uh, I'm just finishing a paper that I'm writing, which will be in one of my new books, and it's called the Mesuit, Mesuit, the Mesuit. Because what I've discovered, and what the Afrocentrists have discovered this, and that is that you have to challenge almost everything you learn in the West. You can't just accept it as if, oh yeah, they said this and that's it. Because all these are concepts that are created by human beings. People create concepts. Even the concept of race is created. Europeans gave us that. These notions, they just create these notions, and they create them for purposes. I was just listening to someone the other day talking about sovereignty of nations. Where does sovereignty of nations come from? Europeans created that. They needed it. It was a concept that made sense for them, you see? And after 30 years of war in Europe, they decided they would create a concept called sovereignty. And that meant that borders, they had nations that had borders. Before you had kingdoms that didn't have, firm borders. Those borders moved here and there. You didn't know. And there were some spaces between kingdoms that they called no man's land. And what they meant by that was we don't know who owns that. But in 1648, at the Treaty of Westphalia, they decided, the Europeans got together and decided, we better create a concept that will harden the borders. So that's why we got borders. That's why in the United States right now, you got Trump running around saying, well, we got the strongest border in the world. Well, wait a minute. For a long time, borders didn't matter like that. People just moved wherever they wanted to. In fact, the way the United States got Texas was that white people moved out of Louisiana and Arkansas into Mexico because that was Mexican territory. It was not, Texas was Mexico. They moved into Texas, and then so many of them moved over to Texas, they decided that, maybe Texas should be separate from Mexico. And the Mexican army went up under Santa Anna, you remember that, and killed all those Americans in San Antonio at the Alamo. They said, no, this is Mexico. And the thing is that what the white Americans wanted to do in Mexico was to bring slavery. That was a real issue in Texas. They wanted to bring slavery into Mexico, into Texas. And they wanted to do it because they thought it was great cotton country. And it was great cotton country, but in 1829, the first black president in the Americas, the first black president in the Americas outside of Haiti had outlawed slavery. His name was Vicente Guerrero. Vicente Guerrero was the first president to outlaw slavery in 1829 in Mexico. A black man outlawed slavery. And Americans wanted to bring it, and they had fought a war. And then ultimately, the United States took half of Mexico. It took Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Colorado, Nevada. You see? Took all those, that was Mexico. But it's no longer Mexico. You see? It's war. It's imperial grab. Just like Trump talks about taking Greenland or Canada or Jamaica. I even hear they threaten Jamaica. Wait a minute, we want to take Jamaica. Let Jamaica be Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? But the whole idea of bullying people, that's a white racial supremacy as a doctrine. And that's the key problem. And our problem is that we have not learned how to resist it because we sometimes adopt white racial supremacy as our belief. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I'm telling you about the mess suite. The mess suite is the African concept for what Europe has called prehistory. Now, this is going to be my final point. Homo sapiens, that's all of us who are in here. Homo sapiens started about 350,000 years ago in Africa. That's Homo sapiens. Now, we're the only humans in the world. There's only one race in the world. It's the human race, Homo sapiens. It's the only race. There are no other different races. In fact, the one that perhaps existed similar for a while along with Homo sapiens was Homo neanderthalians, you see? Homo denisovans, they were around for a while. But the only human race now, only when we say humanity, it started in Africa. There's not one place of humans in Europe, Asia, or in America. All the so-called indigenous people were also started in Africa because they were Homo sapiens. All Homo sapiens started in Africa. All the DNA goes back to Africa. Even people say, well, I'm a Native American. I'm a Arawak or I'm a Taino. Well, it goes back to Africa too. I'm a Chinese, goes back to Africa. I'm from Finland, it goes back to Africa. Homo sapiens, we all Homo sapiens. Now, Europe messed it up because 500 years ago, they felt that it was economically possible to separate Homo sapiens. And they created a concept called race. And there was a racial ladder. They had some people at the top and some people at the bottom. Europe was always at the top. Africans always at the bottom. Now, if you accept that racial ladder, you are yourself a white racist. So black people can be white racists. Don't tell me what black people can't be. I've seen black people who are white racists. We have a lot of them in the United States. And I know that. And I know they got some in Jamaica too. I know that. I know it. Because we accept that as a fundamental fact sometimes because Europe has given it to us. They sold us this bill of goods. So they sold us a bill of goods called prehistory. But look at this. Before 70,000 years ago, all Homo sapiens in the world were black. There were no other people. There were only black people before 70,000 years ago. Why were there only black people in the world? Because we started in Africa and we didn't leave Africa until 70,000, and all of us didn't leave Africa. That's why you got almost 2 billion people in Africa now. But the Africans who left and went to other parts of the world, found different climates and different environmental situations and different mutations, created different phenotypes. People look different and so on. Their hair may be different, their eyes may be different, but they all started in Africa. You see, that's the beginning. Okay, but you know what Europe told us? They say, well, history doesn't start until writing starts. So writing starts around 3,400 years before the Christian era in Africa, in Kemet. And then later on, maybe 500 or 600 years later in Mesopotamia, which is now Iraq. So you get writing, right? But wait a minute. If you count where we are now, 2026, and you add that to 3,400, you're saying, well, that's not even 10,000 years ago. Wait a minute. But Homo sapiens have been on the earth for 300,000 years. But until writing comes, Europe says all of that is prehistory. So you know what that means? It closes down a discussion of 230,000 years. Closed down. You don't know where, nothing happened. All of that time was spent in Africa. I have reinterpreted that in one of my histories as a messuit, which is a word that comes out of the Kemetic language, meaning the formation of cultures. That's the period that all ethics, all values, all ways of approaching construction, all ways of understanding society were created. And they were created in Africa long before Africans left the continent to go to other continents. That's the messuit. That's the richest period. It's richer than the whole period of what we call writing. You see? Because writing, we haven't had writing for maybe 10,000 years. But we have had so much going on, and I don't have time to tell you all the things that have been going on for those 230,000 years when we lived only in the continent of Africa before we spread to other places. So my brothers and my sisters, I just want you to know that Carter Woodson was a great man, and he was one of the greatest intellectuals that we've ever had. And he was, of course, associated with other great people. And one of the great ones of all times, James Weldon Johnson, wrote, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last where the white gleam of our bright star is cast." Thank you very much.
Let's give Professor Molefi Kete Asante another hand. That was fantastic. And you just got a slice. And I'm glad to see the places filling up a little bit. I actually see some of my colleagues here from the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work here. And one of my graduate students that I, mentored. So I don't know if I don't want to embarrass you, but will you stand up and be recognized? Maybe no. Okay, no, I won't do that to you. I won't do that. That's okay. All right. Well, thank you anyway. And I see Ras Miguel is here, the founder of the Black Book tradition here in Jamaica. So I'm glad you made it here to support the Black History Month for Ras Miguel. It wouldn't be the same value. Let's give him a round of applause. It's been, on the battlefield, selling the literature, a real soldier. So, Ras Miguel, very glad to see you here. And there are many people I can recognize, but I want to actually just pay attention. And one of our musical legends are here. We actually have set out to honor and celebrate and acknowledge the contributions of our great reggae artists who have contributed so much to Black history when even we never formally celebrated Black history. And I'm really glad to see actually that Fred Lux, vintage reggae artist from the 70s, I grew up on your music, Fred, and I have much respect for you. And he's one of the awardees, and he has taken the time out to come. And I want you, Fred, to come up toward the podium, and I want to give you a certificate of appreciation for your contribution to the Black history of Jamaica. You are informed and not only edutained, but you have informed Black people and all people about Black history through your music. And you've had a big influence on me, Fred, if I never told you. From I was, you got a few years on me, but I was still old enough in the 70s to know good music when I heard it. And Fred is one of those people who was pumping it out, you know. So without Fred, come and get a certificate of appreciation. I hope someone can take a photograph. Yeah, well, like, and if you want to do it on track or you just want to do a cappella, all right. Well, we can set that up, Fred. But I want to read out what the thing says to the people real quick while you find your jump drive. So the Certificate of Appreciation, the Black History Month Centennial Award. So we're giving this out to mark 100 years of Black History Month, presented to Fred Lux for your outstanding contribution to Black history through your music. This is coming from the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work, Faculty of Social Sciences, the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Kingston. So it's a long address there, but we want to make sure the people know who it was that was giving you the award. You all right? Thank you, Fred. Thank you. Keep up the music. Keep up the vibration. We respect that. Johnny Clark is here. Oh yes. I'm tired. Looking around and saying, there's an international star who I have much respect for, but didn't know before Johnny. So let that certificate that we have. Can I maybe you could do the honor and find the one for Johnny? See? Okay. Yes, to Johnny, can you come and do me the favor, do me the honors of coming up to collect this certificate of appreciation? And this is deliberate as well, because these reggae legends that are coming up here who have dedicated their lives to educating the public, because their lyrics are not, some funky duplities. That's very heavy, serious, substantive lyrics. And I want any of the younger artists out there, fledgling, to take note that your music should entertain and inform, right? It shouldn't just be some kind of gimmick music. No, we don't want the gimmick. We want the substance. So I'm appealing for all the artists out there, and even those on YouTube land, because I understand we're going out of YouTube, please give us music that informs and educates. None of this shallow stuff. Now, I'm an idealist, and I don't apologize for that, but I grew up in the 70s buying music. That was my favorite pastime. I went to Jamaica College, and it was central enough. I could take a JOS bus downtown. I could go even to Halfway Tree, and I could get some real serious reggae music. I could get a Johnny Clark tune, and so forth. But Johnny, very quickly, the certificate of appreciation at the Black History Month Centennial Award is presented to you, Johnny Clark, for your outstanding contribution to Black history through your music. from the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work, Faculty of Social Sciences, the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Kingston, Jamaica. All right. So that is you. Can anyone? There's a picture moment. And yes, please. Because these are living legends, my people, right? They've set the foundation from the 70s, and we give thanks you're still here today, giving us good music. Let's give them their flowers. Let's give them, yes. Fred Lux and Johnny Clark, I'm glad you took the time out. They didn't have to come, but they came.
Yeah, create for Professor Michael Barnett. Give thanks to musical intelligence, knowledge about where we're coming from to where we're going. Yeah, man. How you feel? Yeah, I must give thanks again because so knowledgeable you are about these things, intelligence. Because this man, I give him high marks. High marks, excellent.
I see a jump drive in here. Is form or you're holding? Yeah. Oh, Fred. All right. Well, I'll try and double up as I guess sound man. I'm a little bit rusty, but let's see what I can do. So give me a second. So the big tune is the first one, right? All right. You want to do the honors? Yeah. We'll have the mic. Yeah. So Fred is gonna do a track for us, a song. So let's give it up once again. Fred Lux, the Dreadlocks.
I never tell about Johnny, but dressing too. You know? You never do. Respect. Respect, brother. And we give thanks, for the appreciation. Enough love and respect. Drama big tune of me. Top side, I could get it right. I know some supposed to know this, it go like this. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. I can see them coming. I can see idols running. I can hear the elders saying, these are the days for which we've been praying. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. It's repatriation, a black liberation. Say the time has come, black men are going home, cause 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. Black star liners coming. I can't just drop right for a while. Give me again. I can see them coming. Yes, I can. I can hear the elders saying, these are the things for which we've been praying. For 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. The good part. Marcus Garvey told us the freedom is a must. He told us that the black star liners coming one day for us. For 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. 7 miles of black star liners coming in the harbor. Yeah, the 7 miles of black star liners. 7 miles of black star liners. 7 miles of black star liners coming, 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 coming. For I and I, for I and I, for I and I, yes, I and I. Black star liners coming. Yeah, yeah. That's the land is coming. It's not a myth, you know, it's real. Ghana still have the shipping company waiting. Right, Brother Miguel? It's real. Coming for I and I. Yes, I and I. Will I do part? Not to joke, not to give up a man. Bobo, Shanti. First cat of Israel and Orthodox. But I was sitting waiting by the docks. I and I. Yes, I and I want to tell you something. My coordination is coming here today. Roast up and everything, but I said, you know, missus, I'm going to sing the same way. And can't get way out for nothing. You see me? Draw the next one for me now.
Which track?
Two Rasta man there. We'll just give him a little touch. Because I sing against the system long time, you know? See. I call upon the Rasta man to live up strong, oh yeah. I said it won't be long now. I must forward, oh yeah. So just say, Rasta don't work for no CIA. You know, we have to talk the truth, sing the truth. People, share that black. You know why? To the real. What's that in front of you? For the black art man, share it. To live up strong. I said it won't be long now. I must forward. Right, Daddy. Just say, that's no work for no CIA. I said, here to show the way. Oh yeah, rock for the partition. To Rasta man is a good and upright man. So we will live, yes we will live forevermore. Through the mercy we'll enjoy. So just say, according to your work, you will get paid. So try to live in an upright way. Tell my people what you say. Whoa, yeah. Tell them what you say. Whoa, yeah. To Rasta man, don't put his trust in guns. We put our trust in the Ola one. We'll never give a straight unto the beast, so you better leave us. Leave us to peace. So just say, according to your words, you will get paid. So try to live in an upright way. Tell the people what you say. Yeah. Whoa. Tell my people what you say. Thank you, family. Tell them what you say. Tell them what you say. Whoa, 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 yeah. Tell them what I say. Original singing. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Fred Locks, the dreadlocks. You see that voice there? Silky smooth and, yeah, I mean, respect that to the max. Well, I guess, I don't know, Johnny, that might put a little pressure on you, but you never bring no, you never bring any. It's good, but we're glad to see you still. And the people I'm supposed to know. Well, when we go into the refreshment period, I will make a point to dig up some Johnny Clark and play it for you so you know the kind of tune this man deal with, you know? Because no ordinary artist is. So don't worry, you won't hear him live, but I go dig up, go YouTube and dig up some serious Johnny Clark. Now I was hoping to see some other artists come in, but it looked like maybe them get delayed or they will come in late. It is what it is, but without further ado, we're going to go into a question and answer segment. And as I go into that, actually, I am very pleased to see some local members of the Nation of Islam here, the Jamaica branch, and many people may not be familiar with the Nation of Islam, but there is a branch here in Jamaica. I mean, it came out of the U.S., so, you know, I guess these brothers have graced the venue because they heard about the lecture. So we give thanks, and the Nation of Islam in their own way have been sort of quite embedded in Black history. They have a perspective. So actually, I would actually like to hear a little bit about how they see the the transition or the development of Black history. I don't know if you want to say anything, Brother Fitzroy. I'm not. Sorry, I'm forgetting your name. But oh, you got something to say? Oh, wow, you came prepared. I see. Well, hopefully, it won't go for more than 5 or 6 minutes. But yeah, you got a dossier there. Anyway, my brother, what's your brother's name? David, brother David. Yes. Well, welcome, and give the people a perspective. Give thanks.
In the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one true God to whom all praises are due, we forever thank Him for coming in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, rising up, the one that scriptures spoke of that indeed He'd come, the Honorable, or the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in extending that wisdom to us in our modern day, we have in the modern day the most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's in these three names that we meet and greet each other in the greeting words of peace in the Arabic language, the best language with the ability to describe. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. I am here. My name is David Muhammad. I'm standing in representing the student minister, representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan here in Jamaica, Brother Clive Muhammad, who, brother, you have been familiar with him many times and you have had him here. Unavoidably, circumstances created, and he had asked me to stand in. I do hope that what I deliver will be in the same spirit that he delivers, and the words will resound as much as when he does, and when he says that it speaks to volume. So, in his notation here that I'll be reading from, I didn't come to represent my own words, but the words of he who represents the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he opens, "In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." Carter G. Woodson initiated the first Negro History Week, which eventually became Black History Month. The Nation of Islam is as much a part of Black history as any other organization that is for the upliftment of Black people. Today, February 26, we celebrate the birth anniversary of Master Fard Muhammad. We call today, February 26th, Savior's Day. Savior's Day because we believe that Black people are most in need of a Savior. And every year around this time, we have what we refer to as the crowning event of Black History Month. It is not the crowning event because it comes at the end of February, but it is the crowning event because it brings together Black people from all walks of life, from every class, creed, religion, and denomination. But it doesn't just bring us together, it brings us together in the most orderly, dignified, and civilized manner, where the highest degree of morals are ever on display. You don't hear cursing, you never see fighting. We are not drinking or smoking. Therefore, the children and the elderly are secured and protected in the environment. The greatest display of entrepreneurship is on display during our Savior's Day celebration, where vendors from a wide cross-section of the Black community have their goods on display. And that is why it is the crowning event. Brothers and sisters, you cannot have a Black History Month where you exclude the Nation of Islam. You cannot have a Black History Month wherein you exclude the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad, for us, is not just a Black leader. Elijah Muhammad, for us, is fulfillment of Scripture. He, for us, fulfills the prophecy of Malachi chapter 4, wherein it says, "Behold, I send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the children to their fathers," meaning that as a people who were cut off from our connections to Africa, the work of Elijah is to get us to reconnect to our fathers. But not only for us to reconnect with Africa, but he will also turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. And so Africa, the continent, will also reconnect of the Western Hemisphere. And he furthered, "We cannot have a Black History Month without the spiritual son of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan." And so we change the atmospheres, S in Savior's Day, into S apostrophe, so that the past, that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been on the battlefield working for the resurrection of and And his work, like before him, is a work of salvation for the black man, woman. And of course, the word salvation is a Salvadorian word, which means to repair. So it is in good context to recognize that we are that required to be repaired. So, in his conclusion, it is all good and well for us to have political advancement, but what good is politics? It is all good for us to have economic growth and development, but what good is wealth without morals? Therefore, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has spent his whole life working for our spiritual, economical, and political advancement. But no politician have worked to stop us from lying and stealing and abusing and cheating on our wives. But Farrakhan has, and we are now a part of the S apostrophe, and all of us should be part of the mighty work, not just to take Black history, but to live Black history, where, as the Black man gathering to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, every time you see a Black man, you are looking at God. Thank you for listening. These are the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's representative, Brother Steve, Brother Clive Muhammad. Thank you. And in our closing, Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, thank you, Dave Mohammed. So now we are just going to move into general question and answer session. For those of you who heard the great keynote talk by our professor, highly acclaimed. Let me tell you, he didn't mention this to you, but you know, it's really when I read his CV just a couple of months ago when he was going to come down, we knew he was coming to Jamaica. I realized 105 books. This man you see sitting here has written 105 books. And we aren't talking about the articles, the refereed articles, the journal articles, and so forth. So for my colleagues, and I'm going to big up Julian Devonish here for coming, you know, hopefully this is inspiration, right, for us to we're under pressure to publish. You know, they say publish or perish, right, in the academic circles. So one of the things I would say is in the U.S., it's probably more competitive, Julian. So you know you are under the, you know, and it's a healthy kind of competition because I was more active, I think, publishing in the U.S. than I am here. But that's another story. Anyway, let's bring it into the discussion on Black history. Is it relevant today? Do we still need it? And some of the issues that Professor Molefi Asante brought up in his keynote, how does that resonate with us here today? So in this year, which we consider to be, you know, 2026, 100 years after Carter G. Woodson introduced Negro History Week, which then evolved into Black History Month, where are we today? Are we in a better place? Have we arrived? I'd like some perspectives, please. Anybody? This is the open question and answer session. So, yes, my brother, let me get one of the mics for you. Give me a second.
Good afternoon, people. Good evening. I would like to know, you see, because when I came here, I was expecting to see some of the students from the university crowd the place.
but something is wrong. The youth of today, I don't know, but them, it's like they are not interested in black history, and I'd like to know why.
Actually, you ask a very tenuous question, my brother, but I will try and answer that as best as I can as an educator here at the University of the West Indies. And you see, there hasn't been a tradition of teaching history at the secondary school level. So it starts at primary and secondary. I mean, I was fortunate that I did some history, at least at secondary level, and to me it was a natural subject to have. And although it was mainly European history, it still, it opened my mind up to the fact that stuff happened before. And I became interested and I tried to connect what happened in the past to the present. My mind got more uh, inquisitive about what happened in the past. And the problem with the issue with the students of today in my class is they know to next to no history. So they come into the tertiary institution knowing next to no history. They haven't built up that inquisitiveness in the past. And I'll go as far to tell you this, and it's funny, but not funny, haha. I was asking in one of my classes, actually my African diaspora classes, they could tell me the decade that reggae music started, just the decade. And I said, sir, that sounds like a 20th century thing, Send me a Gen Z. That mean in no 20th, a strictly 21st century me I deal with. So why you come with an old time thing? Why me need to know which decade reggae is? What that has to do with me? Me is 21st century. And he was proud and he was saying it boldly. Me a Gen Z. You stay with your old time thing. Me a modern person. No. Think about that mindset, right? And he wasn't the only, he was just outspoken. But I sense so many of the students, you come with them all the time thing. Listen, there's a track, favorite Peter Tosh track I have called Africa. And I know you would know it because you're the age, you would know it. Listen, when that came out in 1977, on the Equal Rights and Justice album. Man, I tell you the needle wore down because I kept putting it on that track. No matter where you come from, so long as you're African, right? Yeah, that's on the Equal Rights and Justice album. The needle, had to change that stylus and go for another. But I just kept playing it because it resonated with me. No matter where you come from, so long as you're black, you're an African. And I was like, yeah, I'm an African. Look at my complexion, and he just said it outright. That was the kind of, so we were getting black history in our minds, listen to the music. Now listen to nowadays music. How much black history do you think the youths are getting from the music today? Let's break it down. Let's be honest. Now, with that kind of exposure, they got no appreciation for the serious, real history. There is no appreciation for history. So something has gone wrong from the secondary school level. Something is going wrong in our high schools, and I actually want to approach the Ministry of Education here in Jamaica to see what we can do to fix it. Because when they come, if they come to us already broken, for lack of a term, it's very hard to put back the parts together. But you come here and you have no appreciation of history, and you're in the social sciences. Little do they know that sociology depends a lot on history. Yes. If I didn't know any history, I couldn't have passed any of my sociology degrees. But I bite my teeth on history. That's what pushed me through. That's what gave me a passion. How has society evolved? How has it changed through the centuries? Right? When I'm talking about 19th century and what happened and how Jamaica was colonized in, 1555 and all of that stuff, 1565, they're like, what's that got to do with me? 1565, that's like centuries ago. They say, I can't, that don't mean anything to me. And as I said, I'm Gen Z, I'm 21st century. So as far as they're concerned, if it's before 2000, it has no bearing on their life. And that's how some of our are living today. So for those of you who have young kids, just be very cognizant of how they think and perceive the world, because we are in trouble with that kind of thinking. But it's real. I'm seeing it right now. So I love that question. Anyone else have a question? Yeah, pass the mic for this brother in front. He's right here in front. Yes. Yes. Let's take your question, my brother.
You have two regions in the world where you have black governed states, Caribbean and Africa. What is a common denominator among the so-called black leadership from Africa, sorry, from the Caribbean to Africa? And I'm saying this against the context of the concern that is raised by about the lack of interest in things related to black people. What is a common denominator amongst the so-called black leadership? In fact, from the Caribbean to Africa, how many black leaders can you identify that is, in terms of their position, what they stand for, that is similar to that of the three leaders from the AEST, that is the Alliance of the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger? How many black leaders do you see on this planet here that have the backbone and courage like those three black leaders?
All right. Good question. You wanna? I don't know. You wanna? I don't know if you wanna take that one, Prof. But I know you got a perspective. Yeah.
Dr. Asante,
Yeah.
guys, to you.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that there are very few, but there are very few anywhere, even in other parts of the Americas, and there are very few even on the continent of Africa. And the reason for it is basically, as I have said in my presentation, we don't have an Afrocentric orientation to anything. If we had an Afrocentric orientation, that means when they say Afrocentric, it means that the first question is it in the interest, the best interest of African people? That's the question that all politicians have to ask. If it's not in the best interest of African people, then you most likely are making a mistake. But these leaders of the Sahel, particularly President Traore, what they are saying is that we're going to do nothing but ask the question, does this benefit Africa? If it benefits African people, fine. We're not trying to benefit France. We're not trying to benefit the United States or Russia. We're asking the question, is it of benefit to us? And we don't have that in the Caribbean, and we don't have that in the United States.
All right. Very good. I see two hands raised here. Let me. I'm going to take you first, although I think that brother was first. But we're going to get both of you.
I just wanted to ask, I guess this a rhetorical question, but might it be, going back to the first question, might it be that the lack of curiosity, as you put it, and the lack of orientation towards those things African and those things which have gone before, trying to avoid the word past there, the lack of orientation towards those things African and those things that have gone before, could it be in our young? Could it be that it is also, if not primarily, a failure of the generation that has gone before?
Yes, it's our failure. Of course. You're perfectly right. No, it's our failure. It's not the young people's failure. It's our failure. We are the ones who did not transmit to them even the lessons that we learned about our history and culture. So no, how can they know? How would they know? When we sent them home, sometimes telling them, stay away from them classes on race, stay away from that black stuff, stay away from radicals. We sent them out there like that. And now we ask, why don't they know? No, they're not interested in it. So part of the problem is, you're right, that all people all mature people train, educate, teach their children what their culture is, who their ancestors are or were, and where they came from. We don't do that. In fact, what we do, we try to teach them away from their memory and their identity and their culture. You see, that's not correct.
And
That's our problem.
before moving on, just to add, since we're clear on that point, apart from the failure of the community to train the community, that is the one generation to teach the next. We should also be aware of the fact, we might also be aware of the fact that there are very real social factors and very real political threats, and I mean political in its more general sense, that is threats from sources of power and so on, that keep both the generation that has gone before and the generation that is coming away from things that are African and that are uplifting of our people.
I want to be clear when you said people feel intimidated. So you're saying that of recent, there's a great deal of intimidation of people getting into Black history and then they want to shy away. I don't sure if I'm getting the context.
Well, I meant it in more general. So racism did not stop with the abolition of slavery and the end of slavery. Racism continued in subtle ways and not so subtle ways in our institutions, in our discourse, but also in just the way we see each other and are around each other and react to certain lines of thinking, certain ideas, certain orientations, certain ways of being and moving. And I'm saying those same factors, those same elements that have not been adequately addressed in neither our culture here in the Caribbean or in the Americas in general, North America, South America, Latin America, if you will. They have not been adequately addressed. So not only, so those factors still bear upon the community, that is the Afro community, the African community that still exists, in ways that make us, that suppress us, and that make, for example, one generation less inclined on Africa, educating next generation. Is that clearer?
That's clearer. Well, that's a perspective. It's interesting, but we look at that. I want to get this brother's question.
Thank you very much. It's Dr. Molefi.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I just want to first start off by thanking you, sir, for visiting us and taking your time to share that bit of history with us. It's not something that we are accustomed to here in Jamaica. And I personally believe that it's very deliberate. Yes, because as you said, if you keep a people away from their history, then they are definitely lost.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
What is a tree without its root?
Yes, sir.
Right? Dead.
Yes.
So here in Jamaica, we have dead people, spiritually dead people. And that's a fact. If you travel the street here in Jamaica, see a lot of our beautiful Black women bleaching their skins.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
to look like our former slave
yes,
masters.
Yes, sir.
And the irony, they are in the sun every day trying to get our melanin.
Yes, sir.
So it's we have been hitting our head, and brought on a Western journey.
Yes, sir.
And most of us are lost. We don't know our way back. Don't know where to start. So it's not that, I know, don't feel discouraged by the empty chairs.
Oh, no, no.
It's really not
Oh, no.
our people doing.
I know.
This is strategic.
Yes.
These events are not supported, they are not promoted, and it's not celebrated.
That's right.
Right? What they promote here in Jamaica is indecency, slackness, right? And the powers that be, people who are in the offices, who are in places to make the necessary changes that are required, they have a muffle over their mouths,
Yes.
right? Because they report to the very people that have caused us the harm, right? They are supported by the very people who have placed us in this position. So they are mute when it comes on to anything that will go against their masters. So what I want to personally ask of you, not just as a Jamaican and as a student and a member of the Nation of Islam here in Jamaica, but also as a father of 6 beautiful children, right? Where do we go from here? Because we're in a crisis. They will try to pretty it up and tell you all sort of things, but I'm telling you, sir, we're in a crisis here in Jamaica. We don't have no leadership whatsoever outside of our great generals and our musicians who, who have been singing their hearts out. And there are also the good music are also blocked from the airwaves. That's another big thing here in Jamaica. We turn on your radio, it's slackness, right? It's music without substance, because the airwaves now is controlled by money. If you're not paying the disc jack, your songs don't play. So you have great icons like my great brother Fred Locks here. You have the other general here. You don't, if you're not a researcher, you don't know these men exist. You don't even hear Bob Marley anymore. You mentioned it earlier, right? I'm a musician as well, and a music producer, right? And when we have what I personally started a monthly live show, right? We're called Reggae Escape. Because it's deeper. That name came to us from the universe. Reggae Escape. Because reggae to me was in bondage. Right? So we started a live show every last Sunday where we would have a setting where we have a live band, and we make that platform open to upcoming artists and musicians to get the experience of working with a live band. Because since dancehall, which is the baby, the child of reggae, dancehall has now become the dominant thing in Jamaica. And it's a very fast kind of trap music kind of thing, fast and a lot of slackness and a lot of violence. And that is what is pushed. So I personally know it's an agenda. But our people need proper representation.
Absolutely.
Our people need proper leadership, and our people need proper direction. So I want to know, how do we start in that radical direction that is so needed now more than ever before?
Well, thank you very much. That was a very profound question, and I think we should really respect your statement. Is very powerful. I think here's how we start. First of all, we have to celebrate the brilliance, the moral values of those poets. Our musicians are our poets. Of those poets and those musicians who are appealing to our youth. We have to celebrate them and we have to lift them up. The people are stronger even than the commercial people if the people say that this is who we support, this is who we love, this is the person who is really speaking truth to our children, then we will have a mass movement. It has to start with us, number one, choosing and celebrate. We cannot compete with the insanity that's out there, but we can lift up those musicians and poets and creative artists who are speaking truth to us about our memory, our ancestors, our history, our culture, the moral values that we ought to have. We can do that. We can lift them up together. And I think that you're on the right road to do this. I really do.
All right, thank you for that, Molefi. And it behooves me to mention we have another great artist who just came in through the doors. As they say, better late than never. And I'm talking about History Man.
Yes.
Now, History Man is a walking, talking book of history. And we got to hear some History Man. So did you bring a jump drive history? Oh well, oh yeah, I did. But Fred Lux set the trend. Let me just say he said it. You know, Johnny just took it easy this time, but a lot of a lot of people aren't familiar with your material history. So you know you can't compare with these two veterans. They don't have to perform because they're accomplished. You're still, you know, getting there because your music is powerful, but you haven't got the exposure yet. I mean, I know firsthand. I'm just telling you the real deal. You need, you know what I mean? You can't compare yourself to Johnny Clark and say you're as exposed as them because you're not. But I'm not going to put any pressure on you to perform, but you could just give us an a cappella of African inventors. How about that? Just an a cappella. Just give us a couple of verses. Because this brother, he has so much information in his head. He's a walking, talking computer. And I don't know why he's being so modest right now. But, you know, come on, history. Just give us a little bit of that history, especially the African inventors one. You know, he don't even need any music at all. But I just want for those people who've never heard him or seen him, and I don't, you know, to be honest with you, as somebody said, as you said, my brother, this brother in the blues, we don't have any appreciation of black history, and there is a conspiracy to bury it. So History Man doesn't get any much radio play because it's too powerful. It's too, you know, go for it.
Thank you. Greetings, my brother. Yes, thanks for having me, you know. Yeah, Dr. Barnett, big up yourself every time. Yes. Say African inventors and their invention. To know about them, we need information. African inventors and their invention. When I listen to the informative history, man, Africans make paper. Chess and alphabet, father of medicine, the great Imhotep. Africans, we are the head of civilization. European propeller invented by James Adam. Black people know yourself and try stand up firm. Biscuit cutter make by AP as burn. Make me say the Anzemuna support bed. LCBL invent the folding bed. African inventors and their invention. To know about them, we need information. African inventors and their invention. When I listen to the informative history, man, watch it, the tree, I might get a small axe. E.G. Beckett invent the letterbox. Fit physical fit. L.F. Brown invent the Asbury Gobbit. Enough of them a wrinkle have been another school. Oscar E. Brown invent the shoe. Babylon create the sickness, but we have the cure. John A. But invent the lawnmower. African inventors are there invent. Listen to the informative history, man. Listen, history, man, and hear the one, yeah. Boris John Marshman invent the typewriter. Them say after storm, it must be a calm. R.A. Butler invent train alarm. Who you think invent the peanut butter? It's a little black man named J.W. Carver. Enough of them a laugh like them take it for joke. Him see him one invent lotion and soap. African inventors and their invention. To know about them we need information. African inventors and their invention. When you listen again. You need to study more about your ancestor. Alexander might invent the elevator. Black was first, made the French truths and right. Garrett Morgan invent the stoplight. Ancient Abyssinia, that is my home. Henry Sampson idea invent cellular phone. House abundant people run come here. Tom J. Marshall invent the extinguisher. J. Standard invent refrigerator. Paul E. Williams invent the helicopter. Black people are no things and I still don't know. Joseph Dixon invent piano. As some make it no semi a band superstar. Robert Junior Fleming invent the guitar. Me champer the jagana, me champer the beer. J.B. Winter invent the wheelchair. Granville Woods invent roller coaster, telephone transmitter, fire escape ladder, the incubators of the earth that are Ethiopia. Life farm begin from in Mama Africa. Reggae and dancehall, Jamaicans invent that. DJ Cool, I him invent hip hop. I him CM1 that they found of rap. So how come some people still round the chat? Frederick M. Johnson of a peace member this. I him invent the automatic gear shift. How we invent most of the things on the scene. Augustus Jackson invent the ice cream. Lewis and this says we are kings and queen. I him invent the urinalysis machine. Elijah Maca invent lubricator. John L. Love invent serpent sharpener. Maurice W. invent the pressure cooker. A.L. Lewis invent window cleaner. Take pain without shoes. I'm out of Jamaica. That was invented by Muta Baruka. African inventors and their invention. Listen to the informative history man. World chronologists, archaeologists, anthropologists. Thanks for having me. See, Johnny Clark, big up yourself, you know. Yes, Fred Locks.
And don't go too far, my brother, because we have something special for you. Recognition, history man, of your contribution to Black history. Yes, I have a certificate right here. I want you to come up front. Don't be shy, history man. All right, glad to hear that. Glad to hear that, because you deserve this. You're relatively young compared to our veterans, but you've been around for a while. In fact, when I came to Jamaica, let me tell you, which is more than 2 decades ago, I was hearing this brother just pushing out the lyrics. So he's been going at least 25 years, if not more. So he looks young, but he's been on the scene for a while. So anyway, very quickly, this certificate of appreciation of the Black History Month Centennial Award is presented to History Man for your outstanding contribution to Black history, for your music, and this is coming from the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work, Faculty of Social Sciences, the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Kingston, Jamaica. So there's no doubt that it's coming from my department, and I appreciate you, History Man. Keep up the works, keep educating the people through song, verse, and poetry. This is for you. Let's take a photo, please, someone. Thank you very much. We're coming out to that time now where I think we can indulge in some refreshment and, have a talk amongst each other before we're actually thrown out of here, because there is a curfew here. They don't announce it at you. At 9 o'clock, we got to be out, and they want to lock up the buildings and everything. But I think that's an appropriate time. We had a very powerful presentation from Professor Molefi Kete Asante, and let's give him a warm Round of applause because came all the way from Philadelphia, at a heartbeat. And he didn't have to. And so, that trip is onerous because it's not a direct flight from Philadelphia to Kingston. But he's here, and we give thanks for your contribution. We know we have a lot more to do to promote Black history here in Jamaica. But we should also take note that we, in the 70s, and I know that because I was old enough in the 70s, we were educating persons around the world with roots reggae music. The Bob Marley, the Peter Tosh, the Bunny Wailer, the Burning Spear. We were educating people globally with that music. So let's try and recapture that golden age and continue the works. Because obviously those artists, people like Johnny Clark and Fred Locks, were conscious. They were reading, they were seeing what was going on in the world and giving that consciousness out to the world through their music. If our artists weren't reading and up to date with what was going on, we would be just hearing a whole heap of junk. So I have to say, especially Fred Lux and Johnny Clark, are just part of the generation that inspired me growing up as a teenager, getting some consciousness. I got some consciousness in my head in the 70s. And then, of course, I had my parents giving me a Marcus Garvey book at 15, subsequently the autobiography of Malcolm X, and every other birthday I was getting the real deal. They weren't giving me anything funky or superficial. They were giving me some solid material. So, that nurtures us and it nurtures the mind. So when you're growing your youngsters and your children, you got to think, how are you nurturing them? Despite all the madness and the craziness going on in the world, how are you, as a parent, directing them in their lives? How much consciousness are you imparting to them, right? How much critical thinking are you as a parent? Yes, the education system isn't what it should be, but we have a responsibility as parents to make sure our children go through life with a critical mindset, analytical mind perspective, and, just really have a good feel of what's going on around them. All right? Very important. So, I think this is a good time to close it off. There are Yaddies on sale. Benji's Yaddies, they're absolutely delicious. Let me say that. For some of our VPs, those people who helped me produce the show, the event, you will be entitled to a Yaddy. I will bear the expense. Those people who helped produce this event, you appreciate it. And of course, we extend that hospitality to Prof. Asante and his wife, Anna Yinenga. But these are delicious. Benji hails from Ghana, by the way, who have ackee trees, but he's one of the few Ghanaians who has mastered cooking ackee so much that he outdoes many of the Jamaicans. This brother from Ghana, and I want to say it publicly, impressed me because he can make the ackee more delicious than he's outdoing Jamaicans, right? And the irony is when I go to Ghana, normally we're the ones that teach the Ghanaians how to cook their ackee because it's a new thing for them. There's a whole heap of ackee trees, but they haven't mastered how to cook it and flavor it and everything. But this brother is super C. I'm going to tell you, and you may think I'm joking, but his ackee yaddies are the most delicious in Jamaica. I say that unequivocally. Now, just taste them and see if I'm wrong. That's all I'll say. I think, we're going to wrap it up. Huh? The sponsor. Absolutely. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. So, things have been quite heavy, but we want to big up very much Victoria Mutual Group, the Victoria Mutual Group, for sponsoring this event. They actually allowed us to purchase a plane ticket for Professor Molefi Asante and his accommodation that he has here in Jamaica. So we have to big up VM, the Victoria Mutual Group. Let's give them a round of applause, Victoria Mutual. And I'm going to just big up right now here. He's not here, but one of my office assistants, Larada Bowley, went out of his way to print these, to do the graphics for the program. He did the graphics for the flyers for the event, and he went over and above these regular duties to do that. So, I'll just say it for the record that Lorada Bowley, you deserve a round of applause. And I want to thank Julian, who is here. Gillian Mason was here, but she left early, but I still thank you, Gillian, if you get to see the recording, for bothering to come out. And also Kadeen Ferguson, a former student here at UWI, and in the sociology department, also took the time to come. So, I welcome that support from the department. I welcome the support from everyone. So, let's go and grab some food and indulge in the books. I mustn't miss out the fact that Ras Miguel here, he opened the first black bookstore in Jamaica from way in the early 70s. And he still got the tradition here. Because I say that table looks a little bare, there's something missing. And what's missing is, where are the black books? Because apart from a few of these and what Brother Molefi Asante brought, we ain't got a whole heap of books. So my thing, it doesn't feel like a Black History Month event unless I see a table of books. And so thank you, very timely. I know you got some good material there. So let's close it off there. Thank you very much, everyone.